What's up, everybody? It's Corey from the Grease Pole Podcast, and we're going to deviate. We're going to color outside the lines a little bit today. Now, I understand we're a Philly-centric pod, right? We're an Eagles pod. We're a quasi-Flyers pod sometimes. And the Phils are in the World Series, right? Go Fightins. But I wanted to kind of branch out for a few minutes today because I'm also a huge horror movie fan, and specifically the slasher subgenre. And it's very rare that horror gets a movie that captivates people and has everybody talking the way that Terrifier 2 does right now. And it's if you haven't heard about it, just quick 10-second rundown. It's pissed a lot of people off. The original came out in about 2016. It's very vicious, very mean-spirited, very gory. And a lot of people are up in arms and trying to get this movie banned and taken out of theaters. It's a limited release. It's an independent film that has attached to it the stigma of people vomiting and passing out in theaters as well. So, fun times. And it's been out for a couple weeks now. They keep leaving it out for another week, extending it, because they're making a killing on this thing. And the first one in 2016 was made with a budget of 30 grand, okay? Just to give you an example of how these films are made. And I wanted to take a moment to discuss, because you can find these things on the internet, a lot of people's opinions and whatnot, and I wanted to take a moment to give mine. It's going to be spoiler-free as to whether or not you should go see this movie, right? Especially if you are a horror movie fan. You're probably already debating going to see it, but kind of if you're on the fence. The first thing that stood out to me was I believe the official runtime is 2 hours and 18 minutes. That's the official listed runtime. But you're looking at about 2.5 hours, and which for a slasher is pretty egregious, right? So, first thought I had when I looked at was, the first one was, I think, an hour and 20 minutes. How in the fuck are you going to get 2+ hours out of this and not have it drag? Because, these movies are a lot more frantic, a lot more faster pace than, the Friday the 13th are, but they had a lot of lulls in them, and they were about an hour and a half long. So, I was curious to see how that would play out on the screen, and I'm here to say it went by incredibly quickly. It did not feel like a 2+ hour long runtime. It did not. There wasn't any lulls in the action. Even the lulls, quote unquote, were you had something going on. The storyline was a good story for a slasher. You know what I mean? It wasn't, you're not going to win any fucking awards. This wasn't Shawshank or anything, but for the genre, it's a story that's going to keep you engaged and satiated. It was enough. And the 2 hour plus runtime did not feel at all like it does when you see it on paper. It truly didn't. And, the cast of this movie, incredibly relatable. I think a lot of slashers are synonymous with having obnoxious teenagers that fucking suck and you can't wait to see die in the most brutal ways possible, right? And this didn't have that. Most of the people they were all right. They were pretty cool. The final girl was incredible. This wasn't like, Tommy Jarvis's sister in the final chapter, or, Pam in A New Beginning, for example. This wasn't somebody you were like, you found yourself rooting for this girl and her backstory. And it was very cool to see a cast that you kind of weren't like, these are just disposable bodies, even though they're just disposable bodies, right? One of the things that kills me about horror these days, and sort of these Hollywood horror, these big box office horror movies that you've seen from these studios that get made now, there's just so many jump scares. And there's not any jump scares in this. There's no cheap jump scares. There's no lazy shit. And it doesn't need jump scares at all. There's plenty of shit there to creep you out and to give you an eerie vibe along the way. With these new genre of horror that are out now, one of my biggest pet peeves is CGI. I can't stand that shit, right? It's one of the things I hated most about the It remakes. It was obvious that it's bullshit. Somebody put it together on a computer screen. Like, I am aware when I'm watching this movie, it's the Sean Cunningham, Wes Craven, Last House on the Left. Repeat to yourself, it's only a movie, right? I know I'm not going to get scared by this. Some people do, but that's not me. But I want you to take me into that world. I want you to immerse me in it. And computer-generated graphics just don't do it for me. They don't. This was a movie that had practical effects. This was like Tom Savini, like a fucking field day, okay? it was very much like, The Prowler, The Burning, Fulci movies. It was very, very, very gory. If you're a gore hound, you will fucking love this movie. I promise you. And especially with it being those practical effects as opposed to the CGI you're accustomed to seeing now, made it that much better. And to that point, you could see a lot of inspiration that Damien Leone, the director, where he drew some inspiration from. There was a lot of, I'm not going to give any specifics away, but if you've seen the movie Maniac, 1980, the original, William Lustig with Joe Spinell, there was a lot of stuff here in Terrifier 2 that there were a lot of tips of the cap, is what I'm trying to say, to the original Maniac in 1980. There was a lot of shit that I saw inspiration drawn from that. The final act very much gave Tobe Hooper Funhouse vibes, right? Very much, very similar to that, which came out in 1982. Recommend that if you've never seen it, but that's what the final act kind of reminded me of. And, in terms of the death scenes, the first one, the hacksaw scene, right? If you've seen the first one. If you haven't, that's all I'm going to say. You can find it online. Was the coup de grace of the first one. The second one, Terrifier 2, all I'm going to say is very minor spoiler. The big death, I guess you could say, and they're all great, but the most aggressive one takes place in the bedroom. I thought the bedroom scene surpassed the hacksaw scene personally. It was, the difference was for me, the hacksaw scene, when it was over, right? The bedroom scene reappeared once or twice after you thought it was over, which it just reinforced kind of what they were going for there. But I don't, in terms of vomiting or passing out, those reports, I never felt that way personally. My buddy I went and saw it with is also a horror movie, huge diehard. There were 6 other people in the theater with us, right? It was at 4:20 on a Tuesday afternoon. So it wasn't going to be packed, but nobody in there got up and left, okay? Unless they had to pee. That was it. Nobody in there seemed like they felt like they were going to be queasy at any point. If you're kind of sensitive to bathroom stuff, then I would maybe avoid this depending on how big of a trigger that is for you. But other than that, it's just a shit ton of gore. If you can handle that, you're good. You're going to have a fucking field day in this movie because it introduces us to, it reintroduces to us Art the Clown, who, Hallows Eve, but Terrifier is where he got sort of his own stage. And look, 78 gave us Michael Myers, 1980 gave us Jason Voorhees, 1984 gave us Freddy Krueger. Okay, there's been, that was the age of horror icons, and there hasn't been one of those in a long time. And I'm here to say Art the Clown should be the new icon of this genre. He's fucking great. And he doesn't talk. It's the vibe, right? It's the expressions. How, going back to the first one, the hacksaw scene, when he's cutting the girl up and he looks back and he's laughing at the girl that he's got tied in the chair, watching this shit happen. He goes to shoot her with the gun and the gun sticks, and he, you can see the visible frustration. He doesn't speak, but he's a clown. He's expressive. And that's what makes him so great, despite the fact that he doesn't say a word. He doesn't have to. And he's a very scrawny guy, very skinny, but it's his vibe, it's his aura that makes you go, yo, this dude is fucked up. The bloody teeth, it's the visual. And a lot of people, let's face it, are afraid of clowns anyway as it is. So this dude, Art the Clown, makes Pennywise look like a pussy. Straight up. And he's the icon that this genre needs going forward. It's very much a throwback film, very reminiscent of Savini era gore, and it doesn't feel like this new generation, this new influx of big box office Hollywood horror films that we've become accustomed to seeing in this country that just fall flat. They don't elicit any sort of emotion out of you or scare you the way that the horror genre is supposed to, right? They're just kind of there. You know what's going to happen. It's become a formula. It's become a system. Terrifier 2 is absolutely a formula and a system as well, the slasher formula, but when done best, and nobody does it better than this movie, it's so effective. And that's why I think this movie truly could revitalize, if it hasn't already, began to revitalize the horror genre. People thought the It remake was going to be this, it's going to reinvigorate the horror genre. Fuck out of here. To me, those two movies sucked, all right? Feel free to argue with me in the comments if you like. I know a lot of people loved them, but I thought they were cheeks. The CGI took me out of it. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't real. It was obvious to me that it had been created. Terrifier is very low budget, very gritty. Shout out to the Flyers mascot. And it's very immersive. It's very immersive. And it's just a canvas that is, it's splattered with tons of blood, guts, teeth, feces. It's an excuse to be gross and disgusting for 2+ hours. And if you're into that, I couldn't recommend this anymore. I couldn't. I had a fucking blast. I enjoyed it way more than I did the first one even. It was a thrill ride for 2+ hours, and I actually would love to go see it again. I'm going to pre-order my copy on DVD off Amazon. I can't wait to watch this thing again. So there's my take on Terrifier 2. If you've seen it, let me know in the comments what you think. Let other people know what you think of it. I would say try to keep it spoiler-free, but look, it's the internet. You're going to do what you want to do. It's a comment section. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you thought of Art the Clown, of Terrifier 2, of this movie that has everybody talking right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit subscribe if you like the video. Feel free to peruse as well. There's no other horror stuff up here, but maybe there will be to come as we continue to branch out. Hit subscribe if you like. Either way, thank you for checking out this video and the channel as well. Big shout out to Art the Clown. And because it's the Grease Pole Podcast, I have to say, as always, go Birds.